Okay, so welcome everybody. So this is our June Masterclass, and we are today looking at safeguarding in the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. So we're joined by lots of our VCSE partners today who are going to be helping with the delivery. So I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves. Laura, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Hi there, I'm Laura Harris. I'm the Sport Welfare Manager at North Yorkshire Sport, part of a new project looking at sports and physical activity sector, and a lot of those are voluntary sector too.
David.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is David Sharp. I'm the Chief Exec of North Yorkshire Youth, and I'm also the VCSE representative on the Safeguarding Executive.
And Andy.
Hi everybody, my name's Andy Shield. I'm one of the development officers for Community First Yorkshire.
Thank you. We're due to have Megan Itzen, who has worked alongside us on this as part of the Just Be work with St Michael's, but unfortunately she's unavailable to attend today. So we'll make a start. Just a quick bit of housekeeping. We do record the session, so we do ask that people turn off their microphones and cameras, just because it helps with some of the editing of the videos, which we will put on the YouTube channel afterwards. There is a little bit of interaction in today's session, so please feel free to use the chat bar, and we will keep an eye on the chat if there's any questions that pop up throughout as well. As we've already said, in terms of accessing our presentations, we do record these and we will make the slides available to you. So slides and information will be sent out through NYS, and you'll be asked to complete a post-course questionnaire in order to obtain your certificate of attendance. And the recording, which we hope will be useful to you, that you can share amongst your teams and colleagues, we will have on the YouTube channel in the next week or so. Really, just give us some time to get some editing done, and that will be on youtube.com/NYSCP, and you can like and subscribe, and then you'll get notifications of all of our videos and masterclasses that we add on as well. So just to talk you through the agenda today, like as I've already said, we're here as part of Volunteers Week, which runs all throughout this week from the 1st to the 7th. And our focus today really is around safeguarding in the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. So we're going to do a bit of an introduction around the VCSE world and what it looks like in North Yorkshire, and then why volunteers are so important in safeguarding, why they're such a vital role in what we do. We're going to look at a couple of case studies exploring those as well. Professional curiosity we're going to touch on, because that's such a vital thing for all professionals and volunteers to be aware of. And then we're going to look at some of the training and check and challenge work available as well. Then we're going to spend some time looking at our campaign that we've been working on, all around kind of key safeguarding messages that we can deliver across the VCSE community. And then we're going to open it up for question and answers around anything that we've discussed today or the campaign. And we're going to ask you to just pop in the chat a couple of kind of key takeaways as well, anything that you're going to action as a result of coming along today. So that's me. I'm going to hand over to David, who's going to take on the next two slides. Over to you.
Thanks, Kat. Just wanted to give you a bit of an overview about what VCSE is, particularly for colleagues who don't necessarily live in the world that we are in. It's a catch-all term that's used for those that are working with a social purpose. And we've been called many things before: civil society, third sector, VCS occasionally comes out as well. But at the moment, the buzzword for us is the VCSE. We've got some real characteristics around the types of organisations that we are. So non-profit orientation. So there's nobody trying to put a Ferrari in the car park by doing lots of contract work and making lots of money out of this. Everything that we earn goes back into the provision that we're trying to provide and the beneficiaries that we're trying to support. Voluntary participation. So there is generally somebody who is volunteering within the organisation. An awful lot have paid staff, but an awful lot require volunteers to do some of the work that's required. For example, our own organisation has got over 80 volunteers, that's including trustees and people doing things that we wouldn't be able to have the capacity to do without them. We've all got a mission and we're driven by that mission. So again, mine is about realising the potential for young people. Community First Yorkshire's got a different one, North Yorkshire Sport's got a different one. We've all got these missions that are pieces of niche that we're trying to improve our communities around. We've got independent governance. So as I just mentioned, we have trustees generally. So they're my boss in essence, and my trustees. They help me direct the organisation, give me strategic direction and make decisions based on the types of things that we should be doing around our mission and the volunteers that we work with. And we've also got that public benefit element around what we're doing. So again, that really drives that community element to our work. I think the importance of the VCS, we've got a huge social impact that we make. The volunteers have great contacts with people out there and are doing some amazing things and make a real impact on people's lives. Community building, that's not about putting a bricks and mortar together. That's about actually creating an asset within communities and providing the support that's needed for those vulnerable individuals who live within our communities. I personally think we're very, very innovative and we can do things really, really quickly. And a case and example is I was asked to set some youth clubs up, and within 8 weeks we had 17 of them running, staff in place, buildings hired, policies and procedures put in place. So from an innovative perspective, we can do things really, really quickly. And the final bit that we do is we advocate and we have a voice around things. So that's one of the reasons why I sit on things like the Children Overview Scrutiny Committee, on the Safeguarding Executive, is that I can advocate for the sector. So that gives you a bit of a flavour as to around what the VCSE itself is. Can I have the next one, please, Kat? Hopefully you're not too worried about those numbers, but I think it's really important that you understand how big the VCSE is in North Yorkshire. There are over 7,000 VCSE groups, and that ranges from somebody who does something county-wide like we do to someone who's just doing an hour in a village hall looking after some young people, or doing a lunch club. There are 67,000 plus volunteers. That's a huge amount of individuals being involved in it, all who need support and training and resource. And then on top of that, as I said, we do have paid staff, and there's over 15,000 of us that do this piece of work. So it really gives you a bit of a flavour as to the size of what we do. And I think what's really important from a safeguarding perspective is you've now got, if you look at those numbers, over 70,000 people who potentially could be seeing things that actually will support somebody and identify what needs to be done if there's a safeguarding issue that comes forward. So just a bit of a flavour around what the VCSE is and our size. And at that point there, I'm going to shut up and move on to Kat, I think.
Laura, you're on mute.
Apologies. So that last slide sets up perfectly for my section. We're just going to be looking at a few little case studies, because as David said, when you've got that volume of organisations and that volume of people, there are lots of different angles that safeguarding can come from. It's about working with the volunteers, it's about training volunteers and staff to spot things, and that's across a real breadth of different kinds of work, different kinds of interaction. So we've just put together a few examples for you, and we're going to start with Mo Farah, who, if you didn't know, was trafficked to this country, and he's got a very heartfelt story to tell us.
I was 9. Nobody should ever go through what I did. It's happening every day. And I was told, you go with this lady, you travel with her. She said, your name is going to be Mohammed Farah. Just remember that. It's just a little kid. I didn't know what traffic meant. I was 9. My role was look after the kids, make sure they came first before me, and if I didn't do any of that, I'll be in big trouble. I couldn't talk to anyone at that point, but I managed to have a good relationship with my teacher, and I said, I need you to help me and try and get me out. I was very lucky to escape that situation. It took me 30 years to even talk about it or to come forward to this point, because I didn't know if I was going to get into trouble. And you can never stop blaming yourself. It's happening every day. But by talking about it more and coming forward, I think we can make more changes. No child should ever go through what I did. I think every child deserves to be a child.
So as much as not a plug for Comic Relief per se, I think it really importantly shows how trusted adults can be anybody in a child's life, and that can be a sports coach, that could be a volunteer. In this case, it was a teacher. And actually, our passion is to make sure that whoever a child approaches can do something about the situation. And we're not expecting people to be, modern slavery and trafficking experts, but we're expecting them to be able to respond in the right way. And that's what this VCSE campaign is leading towards, is you don't have to know everything, but we can react in a way that supports that child. So next slide, please, Kat. So we've got a few different examples coming as well. So the only video one. So these are all real life examples that have happened in the voluntary sector, and I've tried to keep them quite brief because I don't want to sort of patronise anybody. But a volunteer goes to visit a client that they do shopping for. We all know that in the pandemic, shopping trips became a really big thing. A lot of people having their shopping done for them by volunteers, and the door wasn't answered. Do we think that that volunteer should take action? A simple yes or no in the chat would be appreciated. Should they do something, or should they go on with their day? I'm going to watch the chat be dead silent now. I'm hoping even if you don't put in the chat, most of you are thinking, hopefully they would do something. It'd be really good if they did something about it. And this will tap into the sort of next few slides. We'll be talking about the case studies after the professional curiosity. Kirsty, yeah, absolutely. It depends on the circumstances. Let's say that volunteer visits that person regularly, they're regularly not in, or they're expecting them to not be there, and they were told, if I'm not in, drop bags at the door, that kind of thing. But if this is someone that we're expecting to be there and the door isn't answered, let's do something. And it doesn't need to be an emergency response. And I think that's where sometimes people get worried, volunteers worry about it, where they're being told, this is serious stuff. It doesn't require ringing 999 at that point. So next click, please, Kat. A couple of things did happen in this situation. The volunteer simply rang the organisation that they were volunteering for and said, this person's not answering the door. This is unusual for them. So the organisation then takes that on as this case, and they try calling the client because perhaps they just didn't hear the doorbell. No answer. And the organisation then decided at this point to call the family because it was very unusual for this person to not be in the house. The family had security cameras in the house for the client's safety, and it actually turned out that the client had fallen and wasn't moving. And this could so easily turn into one of those news stories that we all see, that is, person found several days later, dead, poorly, in a worse condition than they could have been because action wasn't taken. Most of the news stories you see around these kind of things are, if something had been said at the start, it wouldn't have happened. And actually in this case, the family were able to let the volunteer in because they had a key box. They used the Ring doorbell camera. The volunteer went in, the organisation called an ambulance, and the person did actually get taken to hospital. But had that volunteer not just rung the organisation, that could have been so much worse. So I just think it's really important that we do recognise and that volunteers are really responsible. And although they don't need to be trained ambulance providers, they can make that call. And they do make that call. And in this case, it was, an incredibly good thing to have done. Next slide, please, Claire. And this one's back over to David.
Thanks, Laura. As you can see, there's a scenario there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a class of children. It could be just a group of young people. We picked the class of children just because it gives us a good illustration. So Mr. Simpson's part of the group, volunteers on a regular basis. He's gone out with the young people to the local park. But during that time, Mr. Simpson's seen on the edge of the group talking to a child on his own for a very significant period. He then sits with that same child during lunch, and he's seen speaking to the child later in the day when waiting for parents to collect him. So you've got 3 different times where there's someone's seen Mr. Simpson talking to this one individual. Could this be reported to the safeguarding lead within the organisation? Within a school, obviously, that's very obvious who that is, but within the voluntary sector, who might that be? Would you like to tuck into chat whether I think you should report it or not? And hopefully that I'm not going to get the silence as well. Okay, thanks, Kirsty. If you feel concerned, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think in terms of this one, yes, it could be. So in this actual case, the safeguarding lead did speak to Mr. Simpson, and his reply to that was that he thought that the young person was having a really bad day and he felt he needed some extra support. So there wasn't an issue around a safeguarding perspective in terms of Mr. Simpson doing anything that would be construed as wrong, other than the fact that from an organisational perspective, there needs to be a bit better culture within that, so that open and honest conversations can take place a little earlier. So if Mr. Simpson had gone straight to the person leading the group when he was out in the park saying, so-and-so has got a real bit of an issue, he's having a bad day, I'm really worried about him. If that conversation had taken place there, then he wouldn't have gone down the road of, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Why is he seeing this person 3 times? In this case, we gave Mr. Simpson some training around how to work with young people, what safe working practices are, and what safe reporting is as well, because that's just the important bit. And through that, we can then create a more open and honest culture within an organisation. And by doing that, you create good structures, you've got good codes of conduct, you have good models of behaviour, and you open that conversation up so that they can have professional challenge that's done in the right way. Because ultimately, from an external perspective, Mr. Simpson's actions, as you've demonstrated by what you've said, is you're concerned about that. But actually, if his issue is that I've got concerns about the young person and he's not reported that, that's where it's all falling down. So by setting the right culture, you then can create a no blame culture as well by allowing that conversation to take place. It creates conversations earlier in the system so that you don't have difficult situations or potential difficult situations and things escalating, things being taken out of context. It also improves the external perception, because it might not be just the teacher that's seen that, it might be other young people who've seen it. It could be people, other parents who are volunteering could see that, and then they go away and not understand what's happening and don't have that conversation with anybody. They can then start to spread rumours about Mr. Simpson, which again can be very detrimental. And I think it also provides a very more professional view with proactive and appropriate contact and conversations with volunteers and staff. And ultimately, that's what we need to be, is we want that perception of that we know what we're doing and we are doing the right things. Just to finish this one off, organisational culture is a really hot topic at the moment, and it's not necessarily something that people are really identifying and focusing on. And actually, it's really important around that no blame, making sure you're professional. So just to bring in some of the stuff that's available on the websites, that helps with that culture. Within this case itself, it was a very low level concern, and a report was made. It was documented down. As I said, Mr. Simpson then received training around how to respond to such things, and it was kept on file, but it wouldn't have been part of any referrals because of the nature of what it was. So it just gives you a bit of a flavour as to some of the issues that you can face as a volunteer if the organisational culture is not there to support in the way that it should. I think I'm going to pass on to the next case study, please.
Yeah, so that's back to me. And yeah, David, it was really interesting because in a session I was delivering yesterday around safeguarding, that exact conversation came up around a senior member of staff admitted that she'd used some phraseology that she perhaps wasn't happy with. And she decided at the end of the session to talk to the staff and volunteers and go, you know, I said such and such. I shouldn't have said that, but I want you to be aware that I'm aware of that and that you shouldn't feel uncomfortable. And if you ever, you know, if I ever say something that you're not happy with, please come and tell me. And I think that just was such a lovely example of how that open culture can really move some of these low-level concerns to where they should be. So yeah, it's really important, that culture. So the final case study is slightly flipped. So this is about actually the concern with the volunteer rather than sort of say the volunteer's behaviour. So again, real life examples. So Jane, a young woman, obviously anonymised examples, with a learning disability. She's been volunteering for a year at a charity shop. The manager knows her quite well, but she seems a little withdrawn and not her usual self. Manager sensibly tries to talk to Jane about it, but it results in some angry and abrupt answers and sort of, you know, leave me alone and what's your business. And later Jane becomes more upset and the manager again asks her if she's okay, and Jane shares with her that she's scared of getting in trouble. Now, this is a little bit more around that management practice, but where it sort of interacts with safeguarding. So could you click on to the next part for me, Kat? So Jane then goes on to tell the manager that when she was alone with another volunteer, that he touched her breast and that he said he liked her. And Jane said she tried to walk away and that the volunteer pushed her against the wall and tried to kiss her. She then followed with, but I don't want anything done about this, please don't tell anybody. The manager's response to that could be a variety of different things. And I'm not here to give an HR lesson or a safeguarding lesson. Hopefully, I'm not going to make you say yes or no. We all believe this will be a safeguarding issue. That is, she's a young woman. She still fits into the children and young people's side of safeguarding with the disability that she has, and it involves another volunteer. This, to me, talks about how this could escalate. So had the manager not had the follow-on conversation with Jane and assured her that she could tell her anything, that Jane might not have spoken up. She might have continued to be angry. She might have left. You might have been left with a volunteer who has doing inappropriate behaviour. And we might also be assuming that Jane is not telling the truth. We've certainly come across cases where managers have downplayed this kind of behaviour, particularly in the cases of people with disabilities, because they're not believed. But in this case, the manager absolutely believes Jane. She persists that there's something wrong, and she gets the disclosure. Now, with it being a manager of a shop, we would hope they had really good training around that disclosure and what to do with that disclosure. But I think it's just really important to highlight that quite often volunteers themselves can be vulnerable, and it's not just about the clients that a voluntary sector organisation is working with. The volunteers become part of that structure too. And it is really important that it's dealt with. Now, this situation was dealt with in a very good way. It was essentially, an HR investigation as well as a safeguarding issue. And I think going back to David's case study, I think it is really important, and it's one of the things coming out of the new sports sector guidance and things, is the low-level concerns and the HR side of things are quite often the things that are let down. I feel like with this example, many people will feel comfortable saying that's a safeguarding issue. There's some very clear indicators. This is almost a classic case study out of a training session where you go, yes, we recognise something, we've had a disclosure, we're going to report it. But actually, then what do you do about the behaviour of that other volunteer? And that comes down to your HR processes and procedures. And it becomes really, really important to ensure that voluntary sector organisations have those professional policies and procedures to manage those HR incidences, because if you're not following robust policies and procedures to protect Jane, to protect the volunteers, to protect the rights of the other volunteer in the situation, you could get your organisation into hot water and this whole situation could escalate. And that does lead very nicely on to hopefully the next slides around professional curiosity, and Andy talking around the professionalism within the sector. We might be voluntary sector organisations, and the classic question when people find out I work in the charity sector is, do you get paid? It's like, yes, we are a professional sector. We can manage and deal with these situations well. So hopefully that's just a little flavour of some different case studies from the sector, where safeguarding is a really important thing, and various ways of recognising and reporting and dealing with those situations. So thank you very much, and on to the next section.
Thanks, Laura. I'm just going to touch on a couple of slides looking at professional curiosity. It's been a running theme through all of those case examples. I'm conscious that those case examples have touched on the voluntary sector, and we've got people in the meeting today who may not necessarily be part of that voluntary sector, who are part of varying different professions. But professional curiosity is a regular learning point that comes out from our safeguarding adult reviews, our child safeguarding practice reviews, our domestic homicide reviews. There are not many serious case reviews that come out where it hasn't been highlighted as an area of learning, that there should have been a deeper need and understanding of professional curiosity. So we've had several recent safeguarding practice reviews undertaken in North Yorkshire as part of the partnership. And they found that kind of developing that deeper understanding of the dynamics of the person, the family, the network around that family, and asking professionally curious questions may have led to improved outcomes for children, vulnerable adults and their families. So professional curiosity is a practice mindset, and it's a real communication skill and that involves exploring and understanding what's really happening by asking questions, maintaining an open mind, and it's about that understanding of one's own responsibility in managing risk and safety and knowing when to act, rather than just making assumptions and taking things perhaps at face value. So if we go back to that first example where that we had a volunteer knocking on the door, there was a level of curiosity there. There was something in that volunteer's head that was thinking, this doesn't feel right to me. You know, normally they're always answering the door. So that curiosity was acted upon, and then you could see the outcome of that for yourself. And it's the same with all the other cases. It's about finding out a little bit more to try and get a better understanding of what's going on. So I just wanted to kind of draw your attention, really. We as a partnership, North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership, we've worked with North Yorkshire Safeguarding Adults Board and the Community Safety Partnership, and we've just nicely produced a new piece of practice guidance around professional curiosity to really kind of simplify what it is, to get that understanding. We've kind of talked about what it actually is, so partners can look at that, whether there's any barriers to professional curiosity, what can stop it happening, developing those skills and supporting practice. And we've linked to some additional resources as well. It really is such an important learning tool. I'll make sure that I pop the link in the chat as well. But QRs are always helpful because you can just scan them off your phone or whatever, and then you've got the link to share around. So just to highlight again some of those skills to use in professional curiosity, as I've already said, it's about listening to what a person may be saying, but also going a little bit deeper, looking at what they're not saying, or looking at when they are talking, how are they saying it, starting to look at how they look, how they're presenting themselves, how they're acting, looking at differences and changes, and then how are they not just necessarily communicating with you as a volunteer or as a professional working with them, but how are they communicating with those around them as well. So really starting to build on that bigger picture. One of the key skills in professional curiosity is to consider multiple perspectives, or even to think about different hypotheses of what may be going on, not just to base this on your own opinion or one opinion, but to kind of really be a bit of a detective and kind of thinking about what other people are saying. Do they agree with what you think? Do they disagree? Why? You know, never make those assumptions and start to you know, just build that bigger picture. Massive in professional curiosity is to trust your intuition. You know, we've all felt it before, haven't we? We've felt that gut feeling, that red flag, something doesn't feel right, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Trust that intuition, you know, be curious with yourself as to why you feel that way, and then seek to build some evidence to support it or challenge it. You may be proved right, you may be proved wrong, but it's about kind of going that bit deeper, trying to find something that kind of supports why you feel the way you do. And if it doesn't feel right, you know, think, what else can I find out? How else can I build that picture? And be really mindful of kind of exploring different communication methods as well. You know, we work with a wide variety of young people and vulnerable adults who may have different communication skills or barriers to communicating. So be mindful of that and think about whether that communication may be better through art or conversation, or there's lots of other tools that they can be looking at. So just a really short video just to highlight some of those key bits on professional curiosity, using the analogy of a gingerbread man, which will probably make me hungry for lunch.
It's about your eyes and your ears, what you've seen and what you've heard. It involves getting a head start and never answering questions from off the top of your head. It's about being nosy with good intentions and making sure that you see what might be right in front of your nose. Occasionally, it's about sticking your neck out and even sometimes putting your neck on the line. Sometimes there'll be a lump in your throat and you might want to hold your breath. You shouldn't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you do have a responsibility to be curious about what's going on around you. It's about really trying to get at what's at the heart of the matter. It's about recognizing when someone is trying to keep you at arm's length and understanding what that's about. It's about understanding what's in your hands and perhaps even using the long arm of the law when you need to. It's about finding your feet in a situation, and it might involve standing your ground. It's about being aware of the toe curling moments and sometimes taking things one step at a time. It's about the tummy sinking moments, the butterflies in there, and your gut instinct. It's about listening with your whole body, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes.
Okay, thank you. So moving on from that, I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to talk about some training opportunities.
Thanks, Kat. Yeah, I think just kind of my thoughts on the curiosity thing, it links really well into this, because for the curiosity, for me, it's having that confidence and that kind of the belief that you can say something. And I think that links a lot into training. So in this section, I'm going to talk about the training opportunities available through North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership and Community First Yorkshire. So as we know, safeguarding training is essential for creating safe, trustworthy and consistent environments where children and young people can flourish. It empowers volunteers and professionals to act with confidence and integrity, ensuring the highest standards of care and protection. So these are some of the training programs available. We've got the basic training, the basic safeguarding training, which is an e-learning session. We offer a foundational e-learning course designed to provide basic awareness of child protection issues and safeguarding procedures. So this is a great course because it's something that people can access at their leisure, at their convenience. In addition to basic training, we offer a variety of safeguarding courses covering specific topics such as online safety and mental health. Excuse me. Our online safety courses help volunteers and staff understand the risks associated with digital environments and equip them with the strategies to protect children and young people online. The mental health training focuses on recognising and responding to mental health issues in children and young people, providing the necessary tools and support for their well-being. The in-house training, so this is something that Community First Yorkshire offers. We offer this on a bespoke kind of basis, so we deal with a lot of organisations that come to us around safeguarding concerns. We can work with them and we can tailor a session, whether that's an online session or usually, ideally, a face-to-face course that we go in and deliver to them. We also conduct regular training sessions, and these are specifically aimed at trustees or management committees and those involved in running kind of village halls that have their own unique safeguarding responsibilities. So in terms of accessing the training, North Yorkshire County staff can access the training programme through the Learning Zone. For those that are part of NYSCP, training can be accessed or purchased by emailing training and learning. You do need to have an NYES account registered for free and do that via the website. And you can also visit Community First Yorkshire website. Again, we have our regular training courses that we deliver, as well as having a look on there and contacting us to see if there's a bespoke course that we can deliver for you. So what are the benefits of training? Our training programs are designed to equip volunteers with the skills needed to recognise and appropriately respond to safeguarding issues. We emphasise best practice in safeguarding, ensuring that all participants are up to date with the latest policies and procedures. And ultimately, our goal is to enhance the safety and well-being of children and young people across North Yorkshire through effective training and education. Next slide, please, Kat. So this is something that some of you may or may not have seen. It's a safeguarding self-assessment checklist. It's a valuable tool that's been designed to support the voluntary sector to evaluate and improve their safeguarding practices. I won't go through the full list here, but I'll just pick out a few of the key ones. So the leadership, policies and procedures. Effective safeguarding starts with strong leadership and clear policies and procedures. This ensures that everyone in the organisation understands their responsibilities and follows consistent guidelines. The training, ongoing training is essential to keep staff and volunteers up to date with latest safeguarding practices and ensure they are well equipped to recognise and respond to issues. The development of services, so continually developing and improving services ensures that your organisation remains responsive to the needs of those you serve and maintains high standards of safeguarding. So using the checklist, what we tend to do, we'll go through these things, or a group will do that themselves. So the initial assessment, they'll start by conducting an initial assessment to identify their current state of practices and identify any areas that they can improve on. They'll look to evaluate the suitability of the services in terms of safeguarding. They'll also look at their policies and procedures and obviously review them, update them, or embed them if they haven't got them. And then they'll also focus on staff training and what they need to do and their roles and responsibilities. They provide ongoing support to staff and volunteers and continuously monitor safeguarding practices to ensure they remain effective and responsive. So in conclusion, using the safeguarding self-assessment checklist will help organisations in the voluntary sector maintain high standards of safeguarding. And although this is very much, as it says, a self-assessment checklist, we do at Community First Yorkshire get a lot of organisations contact us, often asking us to go in and sit through this with them and work through everything, because as we know, safeguarding is such a big area. But we're more than happy to do that, and we go in and we support them. And that often leads to then identifying, well, what training do we need to put in place, whether that's some bespoke training face-to-face or whether that's people attending the courses that we deliver. If you want to find more information around the self-assessment checklist, then that's the QR code on the screen. Thanks, Kat.
I was going to chip in and say that I'm a new role at North Yorkshire Sport, but trying to work really closely with Andy, where there's a sports club and they might have a national governing bodies checklist to meet, supporting them with that, and then pointing them back towards Community First Yorkshire for the things that they can support with. So we're really trying to work as a team to make sure the whole sector's supported.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so just following on from that, I'd really like to spend a little bit of time introducing you to the VCSE campaign that's been produced over the last 12 months, really, by a working group with North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership and our VCSE partners. Now, some of you may or may not be aware, we've recently had a new government document come through all around working together to safeguard children. That came out in December last year, and it really highlights the important role of the voluntary community and social enterprise sector as such a vital, relevant agency to be raising safeguarding concerns, to be part of our multi-agency safeguarding arrangements. So we've kind of been a little bit ahead of the gun on this in terms of, the VCSE partners are already well embedded in our safeguarding arrangements. But as a task and finish group, we wanted to look at ways that we could improve communication with our VCSE partners. And that's two-way communication. So information going to our voluntary sector partners, so example, safeguarding updates, guidance, etc. But also our voluntary sector partners feeling knowledgeable and confident to share information and safeguarding concerns back into the partnership. And I just want to put the caveat in here again as well. We're talking about voluntary sector partners, but this is all partners. So again, if you're in the meeting and you're not part of the voluntary sector, please consider this campaign as not just something for the voluntary sector. We've had amazing feedback and response to these resources and a wide variety of teams right across children's social care, education, health, colleagues and policing have wanted to pick these resources up and use them. So please don't think that they're not suitable for you. So just to give you a little bit of background, we did quite a hefty piece of consultation work with some of our volunteer partners, and the focus of the discussion was really kind of what we've talked about, I suppose, is that sometimes safeguarding and that feeling of getting it right or getting it wrong can be a little bit overwhelming. There can be sometimes that feeling that there's too much information to know or hold or to keep up to date with. And again, how that's disseminated to volunteers and voluntary sector teams, it can feel a bit much. So as a working group, we agreed that we wanted to focus on a series of key safeguarding messages, the bits that are expected to be known, with a very clear and concise language, with guidance and information, which will then link you to more information and resources if you want to go a little bit deeper and learn about certain topics. So what we've done is we've produced, and you can see on the slide here, there's a series of posters. So the poster is the snip in the middle, and we've done an A3 and an A4 of those, and they've got key bits of information and a link to a QR, which will take you to that relevant page on the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership website. And we've also got a leaflet with the front cover on the right hand side there. One thing that we've also done as well, to make this information as easy and accessible as possible, is we've collated a lot of the key information onto one page, which we've then put onto a little lanyard card, which is again on the top left of the slide with one QR. So you and your teams can have access to these cards. You can pop them on the back of your lanyard. And if you do feel like, oh, something's happened, I'm not quite sure what to do, you've got a very quick access QR code, which will take you to what you need very, very quickly. So I just want to touch quickly on some of the key elements that are on the resources and the posters. And first and foremost, obviously, is about what to do if you were worried about a child. One of our key taglines right across all of the information and the resources is that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility, and everybody should know how and when and who to share your concerns with. So we've added as part of the resource right throughout that, as we've already said beforehand in the case examples, conversations should always be had with agency safeguarding leads. But this kind of provides partners with that key information of what to do if they are worried about the safety of a child. So we've got what to do if there's immediate concerns, obviously, with regards to dialing 999, but again, how to make that referral via the Customer Resolution Centre and the process for that. The QR will take you to the full process, and that's easy for partners to access. As I go through these slides, you'll see the pictures, kind of the square graphics. These are our social media assets that we've got for each of our key social media key safeguarding messages, sorry. So I'm going to take you to the web page when I've gone through some of these slides, and you can see those. They're there to access for you to share. You can have those and use those on your social media platforms, and we've put kind of key statements and phrases and bits that you can add to Facebook, Instagram, X and things like that that you can use to support those images as well. They're not designed to be used for any specific day or like safeguarding week. They are for you to use throughout. You know, you could have one that you want to put on every week or every month, and you can keep doing it, because one of the key things about safeguarding messages is it's not just about delivering it once. It's about continually delivering those safeguarding messages so that it keeps fresh in everybody's minds. So while we're talking about what to do if we're worried about a child, I just wanted to very quickly touch on some of the signs to be aware of. This is but not a definitive list, and really goes back to those previous slides of what I was talking about with professional curiosity. But it always strikes me, you know, David mentioned earlier, you know, over 67,000 volunteers across North Yorkshire who have that vital window into the lives of young people and families, and are often in that position to develop those positive professional relationships and can be the ones that spot the changes. You know, think back to Mo. Doesn't have to be a social care professional or a teacher. You know, in Mo's case, he was a runner. We know he's famous for a runner. So it was the sports team around him and the athletics clubs that he was disclosing to. So again, likely run by volunteers. They were the ones that had the relationship with him. So it's about being really mindful to those changes. Change is the key word to be kind of thinking about when you're talking about signs of abuse. And again, alongside that, whether there would be any unexplained injuries if a child's behaviour was changing. So if they were perhaps coming a little bit more withdrawn or running away, you know, incidents of going missing, whether there was a change in aggression or anxiety. Always mindful of looking for things like unexplained gifts or money, which could be a really vital sign of potential exploitation. And again, if a young person is displaying what's going on, perhaps through self-harming or overly sexualized behaviours, changes to internet use, things like that, it's about having those eyes and ears open, thinking about it, be curious, share those concerns. Alongside the concerns for a child, obviously, we know that it's vital to consider any safeguarding concerns about an adult who may be a victim of abuse. And again, these concerns should be shared and managed through North Yorkshire Safeguarding Adults Board. So right, as part of the resources, we've put, again, the contact numbers on there and the QR. We've also included information around sharing concerns around the behaviours of someone who works or volunteers with children. So if there are allegations or concerns that a member of staff or volunteer who works with children has behaved in a way that's harmed or may have harmed a child, possibly committed a criminal offence. Sorry, I don't know why the slides keep moving along. Possibly committed a criminal offence relating to a child, behaved towards a child or children in a way that indicates they pose a risk of harm, or behaved in a way that indicates they may not be suitable to work with children, then it is the responsibility to discuss this with the local authority safeguarding officer. And again, the details for the ladder and the QR are all on the posters as well. Now, finally, an interesting one I wanted to talk with you about was the partnership information sharing form. Now, this is in relation to those little kind of nuggets, those other little bits of information that you may want to share. So not necessarily a safeguarding concern, but again, if you are out in the community and you're starting to pick up on some concerning behaviour, if you're noticing there's some antisocial behaviour that's happening and that you're kind of having eyes on, if you're noticing that you're working with a group of young people and there's a car hanging around, or trying to kind of engage with that group of young people, little bits that you kind of think, oh, this doesn't quite sit right with me. Again, going back to that professional curiosity, we all have that obligation to share those concerns, and the police have a portal for doing that. So it's the Police Community Partnership Intelligence online form, and it's a key and safe way for professionals to share that information. So again, something about a concerning incident, suspicious activity, picking up on unusual exchanges between people, things that just make you feel uncomfortable. And even if you think, oh, it's probably nothing, your little bit of information can be the vital piece of a jigsaw that can actually help with vital pieces of disruption and partnership disruption with the police as well.
I give a really good example of that I came across in a training session where it wasn't actually in this county, but they have a very similar system of intelligence sharing. And somebody, whilst the leisure centre, spotted that there's a lot of a particular age of young boys who go to the leisure centre, which potentially isn't unusual. But then there were older men going in and coming out too quick to be using the leisure centre, and they didn't know what to do about it. So they reported it to the intelligence. And by actually following it through, they disrupted essentially drug movements, because they were getting the young boys to put the drugs in the lockers in the leisure centre. And it was just by somebody going, that's just a bit odd. But it wasn't criminal, wasn't anything, but it was just odd, and it led to convictions. So really important.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. And again, just to kind of touch on this, the QR's there for you to access. It's a really quick portal. You can be putting the information on in 5-10 minutes. It will take you straight to North Yorkshire Police. A couple of kind of frequently asked questions. Again, people will always ask, oh, do I need to gain consent to share this information? And no, you don't, and it can be shared anonymously. So the information is screened and sanitised by North Yorkshire Police. They won't see who submitted it. Again, it will be part of their processes in terms of putting the pieces together, and it might be that you pick up the make and model of a car that's been kind of around a park when you've been running a session, but you haven't quite picked up the reg. You might have got only the first few letters of that reg. Submit it, and it might be that someone else has submitted the back end of that reg, so the police can kind of put that information together. My ask is that this is shared and promoted, because I think it's something as a partnership that we are promoting right across all of our teams, and I think, you know, volunteers are able to use this portal as well, and we would really heavily encourage that this is used as much as possible. Okay, so campaign resources. So I'm just bear with, and I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to bring the website page up so you can see, and I will take you to. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. Apologies, it took a while as usual. I was very prepared, and then it's deleted itself, so I had to find it again. So this is our North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership website, and this is our page. So we talked about having that one QR code that you can have on the little lanyard cards. It will take you to this page. So again, we've got it all broken down. So if you are worried about a child, it will talk you through exactly what you need to do. If you're worried about a victim of abuse as an adult, it will talk you through what you need to do. And it will also take you to our resources as well. So you can access there, download and print off your safeguarding posters and your leaflets and your booklet. This is our social media campaign that we've talked about. So again, you've got the asset there and all the different tweets or posts that you can put on underneath. Again, we'd encourage you to really kind of get those out there, because I think a lot of you are using social media and it's a good way to get those messages across. Again, so we've got ones around adults being a victim of abuse. We've also got here links to our training and learning. So again, we've got lots more information on the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership that you can access. We run masterclasses like this every month. So, you know, we've spoken about raising concerns about someone who works or volunteers with children. Only last month, we did a masterclass purely on the LADO and how that system works. So again, if you want to kind of access that, you can do it via our YouTube channel, or, you know, pages like this will take you to that information and training on all elements of safeguarding, whether that be modern slavery, harmful sexual behaviour, all those little bits that you may want to find out a little bit more of. We do have practice guidance or 1-minute guides that you can access very quickly, that you can just have a read through and just develop that learning even more. Lots more training available and learning. So again, I think I touched on the professional curiosity, that we have a lot of serious case reviews and practice reviews that we conduct as part of the business unit. The learning will always be reported on those, and we try and do that in quite a quick and concise way through our 7-point briefings. So again, if you're looking at running safeguarding sessions with your teams, they are really insightful to look at, because they are based on local learning and incidents that have actually happened. So again, you can access those as well. And then finally, keeping up to date, which we'll touch on in a slide or two, you can always sign up to our e-bulletin, which we will send you kind of the first of every month, and it will give you all of our safeguarding updates and our social media links and YouTube channel there as well. So back to our final few slides, because we've got a couple of minutes left. Over to you, and you can just cover that last slide.
Thanks, Kat. Yeah, so as Kat's just gone through quite a bit on that website already, if you are looking to keep up to date, there's a few ways that you can do that. The QR code there will take you to the e-bulletin, and that will give you all the safeguarding updates that you need. You've got the training and learning website there available, and you've also got our Community First Yorkshire, North Yorkshire Youth and North Yorkshire Sport websites available. Do take a look at that for much more information, and you can sign up to things like newsletters, find different resources, different training opportunities that are available, current activities and programs of work that are taking place, as well as all our social media themes that we have going on.
Thanks, Andy. Just finally from me, just a bit of a plea for help. So as a partnership, we are starting to look at the development of a couple of really key strategies around safeguarding. One of which is Being Young in North Yorkshire, which is our kind of overarching safeguarding strategy for young people. And we'll also be looking at the early help strategy as well. So look, we really want to get as much kind of frontline practitioner, volunteer feedback on these. So we're running a series of consultation events just throughout July. We've put some different times in to try and fit around different working patterns. If you are interested in attending, you know, this is your opportunity really to kind of shape some of these strategies. Please do pop a yes in the chat or give me a thumbs up, and I'll send you the details of the Teams links that you can join. E-bulletin we've already mentioned. You can scan the QR when you get the slides through, and you can sign up for those for the updates. And they're all our social media links as well, and our link to our YouTube channel, where we will get the recording up as soon as possible. And I'm going to hand over to David for the last slide.
Thanks very much, Kat. I hope you found that interesting in the last hour, and that you've, for those that don't work in the sector, have actually learned a little bit about what we do. And hopefully we've given some insights into how we think that as volunteers in the voluntary sector we can support the services that you're providing. Couple of quick questions though. Is there something that you've learned from today's session? We'd love you to put that in the chat bar, just to give us a little bit of instant feedback as to whether or not we've covered all of the right things. This is the first time we've done this type of masterclass, so we'd be really interested to see if we've covered the things that you thought we would cover. And could you also put in there something that you're going to do as an action of today's session as well? That'd be really helpful as well, just to, again, to see how the impact of what we're providing is there. While you're doing that, can I just say thank you very much to the team for everything that's been done. Kat particularly for pulling everything together, Laura and Andy for doing the presentations and the slides, and I'm going to go do a silent nod to Megan as well, who's not here unfortunately, because she's done a shed load of work as well. And lastly, to say thank you very much for coming along, listening to us for an hour. It's been really, really useful from our perspective to get this out there, and we're really pleased with our resources. It has been years worth of piece of work. So again, some feedback on what you think of those things would be really helpful as well. I'm not sure if there's any questions actually, Kat, in the chat. Has any been picked up?
No, nothing in the chat. A couple of people have said about joining the consultation events, which is great. I'll send you the details. Comments coming through about people saying how good it is to see what's available for volunteers, people saying about sharing the community intelligence form, looking at adding like the new banner to your email or the social media assets every month, looking at the training opportunities. We'll be adding some of this to our volunteer pack in school. Brilliant. We'll also be looking at professional curiosity. We will do a masterclass on professional curiosity later on in the year, so watch this space, and we'll share the details with you if you want a full hour looking at professional curiosity in a lot more detail and some case examples. But we will stick around for an extra couple of minutes if anyone does want to ask any questions. I know sometimes people are a bit reluctant if we're doing the recording, so we will stop the recording now. But yeah, thank you so much everybody for joining us, and again, if you've got any questions, stick around. We'll stick around for a few extra minutes.